What would you do if the foundation of your happy family life was a lie? In today's story, the protagonist's response to betrayal is a masterclass in cold, calculated vindication. This all happened a few years ago, after a friend urged me to share the story of my divorce. On the surface, we were the picture of success. A standard-issue suburban professional couple. We were financially secure, healthy, and I thought, happy. We had 2 great kids. A daughter, Maya, who was 14 at the time, and a son, Leo, who was 9. Our social life was active. Our physical life was good. I genuinely believed we had it all. But we hit one of those rough patches that married couples go through. The pressures were mounting. We were both putting in long hours at work, and the time we spent together was dwindling. On top of that, we were dealing with some developmental challenges with my son, Leo, which naturally raised the tension in the house. Amidst this, I noticed a change in my wife, Chloe. She was glued to her phone, constantly texting with her girlfriends. I didn't think much of it at first. I took it as a sign that I needed to step up. I started making a real effort to leave work earlier, to help more around the house, to be more present and emotionally available. But the more I tried to bridge the distance, the wider the gulf between us seemed to grow. The truth came out by sheer accident. I was setting up an old iPad for my son to use, and when I charged it, I saw her Facebook Messenger was still logged in. There they were, a long string of highly questionable messages with a guy from her hometown. Let's call him Connor. The messages I saw weren't explicitly damning, but it was obvious there were gaps. Based on the timing and the context, I could tell a lot of messages had been deleted. I made a quiet mental note to keep an eye on things and pushed forward, still hoping to fix whatever was broken in our marriage. The very next day, I took time off work to tackle a list of projects around the house I thought would make her happy. I even left her some sweet notes. Just simple reminders of how much I appreciated her. That evening, I found her right back in the corner of the living room, furiously typing on her phone, texting her girlfriends again. With a knot in my stomach, I took my son's iPad into my office, opened up Facebook Messenger, and watched in real time as my wife systematically tore me to shreds. She and Connor were making fun of me. Every flaw, every insecurity, every private secret I had ever entrusted to my partner was now being served up as entertainment for them. Worse, while they weren't sexting outright, the entire conversation was dripping with a sleazy, sexual undertone. Especially when she started mocking my performance in bed. My hands were shaking, but I managed to take screenshots. I missed a lot of it. She was deleting the messages almost as fast as she was sending them. Confronting her right then felt impossible. I was completely shattered. I just stayed in the office until she went to sleep, pouring myself a couple of drinks to numb the shock. I called out of work the next day and spent it soul-searching, drinking, and trying to process what I was going to do. When Chloe came home and asked what was wrong, I couldn't bring myself to say it. I just copped out, telling her I had a bad day. A few minutes later, I was back in the office, watching the train wreck continue on the iPad screen. That began a grim 2-week routine, taking screenshots, drinking, and methodically detaching myself from the woman I thought I knew. The messages had become overtly sexual, with Chloe fully participating and Connor peppering in I love yous. There was no going back. I knew it. I consulted a lawyer, learned my options, and started to put a plan in motion. This is where everything took a surreal turn. Watching their messages, I found out that Connor was coming to town. He was going to spend a weekend with my wife in a nice hotel. They must have discussed the finer details over the phone, because I was missing some information. But I could infer enough to know the when and the where. Chloe sealed her fate with the lie she told next. She was so focused on the thrill of her weekend getaway. She was completely unaware that she wasn't just packing a bag. She was packing up her entire life as she knew it. Sure enough, the next day, Chloe was all smiles, buttering me up about how she needed a spa weekend with the girls to relax. She promised that when she got back, we could finally focus on our marriage. I played along perfectly. It was the greatest idea she'd ever had. I told her I'd do anything to get us back on track. Immediately, I got with my lawyer and had him draft a strong separation agreement. It stipulated that she would move out, get weekend visitation with the kids, and that there would be no child support in the interim until the divorce was finalized. Then, I endured the most agonizing 2 weeks of my life, acting the part of the hopeful husband. By this point, any love I had for her was gone, replaced by a seething anger I had never felt before. As one commenter on my story would later write, my response was brutal, efficient, cold, calculating, and downright impressive. They were right. I had become a machine with a single purpose. D-Day arrived. I took the day off work. My first stop was the bank. I withdrew exactly half of the money from all our joint accounts, leaving her share untouched. I had already redirected my paycheck to a new, separate account. I closed our money market account, taking my half and getting a cashier's check made out to her for her half. Next, I went to an office supply store and printed out all 75 pages of Facebook messages. Finally, I just killed time. I couldn't bear to be at the house. She sent me a text, saying she was leaving and that she loved me. Have fun. I typed back. At 8:30 that night, I walked into the hotel. I called Chloe's phone from the lobby, but it went straight to voicemail. I walked up to the front desk. "Can you please connect me to Connor's room?" I asked politely. It rang 3 times before he picked up. "Hello?" he answered, his voice casual. "Connor," I said, keeping my own voice level. "Can you send my wife down to the lobby? Please? I don't know what you're talking about." "Bro," he stammered. "Okay then," I replied. "I guess I'll have to call Mrs. Connor and get her down here." It was a total bluff. I knew he was married and I knew his wife's first name. But that was it. I heard shuffling, inaudible panic on the other end of the line. "You've got 5 minutes," I said, and hung up. Not even 2 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Chloe came walking out, looking completely flustered. I guided her to a quiet corner of the lobby. She immediately started spewing nonsense. "It's not what it seems. This is all a big misunderstanding. I'm not here to argue," I said, cutting her off. I dropped the thick stack of printed screenshots on the table between us. It landed with a heavy, satisfying thud. The things that are said in this pile of papers are what's going on. This revealed my deepest understanding of my wife's fatal flaw, her vanity. I knew her pride and her meticulously crafted public image were what she valued most. And I used that knowledge as a razor-sharp sword. I continued. The only way a copy of this doesn't go to our daughter, to your parents, and to every single person we know is if you move out. Immediately. Her public and professional life was built on her image. And I knew she'd protect that at all costs. Shame was my only leverage. And I played that card hard. She just mumbled, her face pale. I pushed a cashier's check across the table. This is half of the money market account. I've already withdrawn my half from everything else. You should have more than enough to get a place. Tears started to well in her eyes. I could almost see the waves of panic, regret, and calculation washing over her face. But I knew I had to keep pressing. I slid the separation agreement next to the check. Here is a separation agreement. I think it's more than fair. All things considered. I need you to look this over. Sign it. And leave it at the house when you get your things. I paused, gesturing to the screenshots. Do you want to look through these? No. She whispered. Okay. I said, standing up. Go have fun with Connor. Do not come back to the house, or I'm sending this to everyone. I walked out of the lobby without looking back. As the doors closed behind me, I could hear her starting to have a full-blown breakdown. I made it to my car, drove to an empty parking lot, and had my own crying rage fit. The old me would have broken down right there in front of her, yelling and crying. But I had managed to hold it together long enough to see it through. Her texts and calls flooded my phone all weekend, but I just turned it off. By Monday afternoon, movers were at the house clearing out her things, and a signed agreement was waiting for me. I allowed her one conversation with the kids, where she delivered the standard divorce talk about mommy and daddy needing time apart. A week later, she wanted to talk. I agreed, feeling composed and sure of my plan. It was a waterfall of apologies. She wanted another chance. She wanted her family back. She would do anything. She was on her knees, crying into my lap. I had absolutely no intention of ever taking her back. But I told her she should set up marriage counseling. This was perhaps the most calculated move of all. While Chloe saw a glimmer of hope, I saw a chessboard. Every session was no longer about reconciliation. It was about establishing a legal precedent. This started our new normal. She would come over 3 nights a week to cook dinner for the kids, do their laundry, and clean the house, all while I made myself scarce. We went to counseling, which consisted of her begging for forgiveness while I stoically played the perfect victim. My only goal was to kill time, establish myself as the kid's primary caregiver, and legally establish that she no longer resided in the house. After a few months, I saw my own therapist and got diagnosed with depression and PTSD. I arranged to go to part-time at my job to deal with my personal issues. 6 months into our therapy charade, I told her I couldn't forgive her right now, but that she was the love of my life and maybe someday we could try again. She was devastated, but agreed to an amicable divorce, clinging to that promise. Once the divorce was filed, I needed to make sure the kids wanted to stay with me. I left a Google search for "How to Survive Your Wife's Infidelity" open on the shared family computer. I also left some printed articles on the topic not so hidden in the kitchen. My daughter, Maya, found them. She came to me crying. And I played the part, telling her she wasn't supposed to find those. That her mom made a mistake but still loved her. And that I would always be there for her. The effect was instantaneous and brutal. My daughter, who had once adored her mother, now refused to speak to her without screaming. It crushed Chloe. Unsurprisingly, when the court asked the kids for their statements, little Leo followed his big sister's lead. They both wanted to stay with Dad in the house they grew up in. When the divorce was finalized, the victory was absolute. I got the house. I got primary custody of the kids. And because of the income disparity from me working part-time, I was awarded generous child support. As one person commented, "The only person who suffers here is your wife. I think you made the smart decision by maximizing your own happiness." For the last 2 years, I've lived in my house with my kids, working part-time, with my ex-wife subsidizing my comfortable life. On the weekends she has the kids. I get to have my own fun. In my children's eyes, I am the patron saint of fatherhood, the one who took the high road. And in my ex-wife's eyes, I'm the one that got away. She still pines for me. And by dangling the false carrot of maybe someday getting back together, I get the added bonus of having her come over for sex whenever I want it. But that is never, ever going to happen. This story is a brutal lesson that in the face of profound betrayal, cold strategy and emotional control can completely turn the tables. It shows how the person who was wronged can seize control and dictate the exact terms of the fallout. My revenge was meticulously planned and flawlessly executed. But it involved the deep manipulation of everyone around me, including my own children. So where is the line between justice and cruelty? And did I cross it? Let us know what you think in the comments below.